Mrs. Adams, your 4 o'clock, said my charming intercom assistant. It was 5 minutes to 4. He had come in early still. I had finished with the previous client and had some free time on my hands. We could get an early start. Besides, I could use that time to talk to him. I should probably introduce myself. I'm Tabitha Adams. I'm 32 years old, and I own my own law firm. I specialize in family law. Yeah, I'm a divorce attorney, not to brag, but I'm the best divorce attorney in the state, probably the best in most states, but I only work in this one. There are several women who work in my office, and none of them are named Ruth. Okay, that's not what makes me ruthless, yes, vulgar. It's just my nature. I'm usually a very nice person. Put me in a social setting or with a friend in need, and I'm the kindest, funniest person on the planet. If I find myself in a courtroom against a cheating spouse, let him or her wear the biggest gag because I will give him or her the kind of smackdown he or she deserves. There are 3 types of people I absolutely hate: cheaters, drug dealers, and pimps. They are scum, and I love nothing more than scorched earth on them. Okay, now back to my 4 o'clock appointment. He came in for initial counseling. Today he wants to divorce his wife, and he's convinced she's cheating on him. This should be fun. Like I said, I hate cheaters. I lifted the filled envelope from the manila to give it to Chloe, my assistant for processing, and walked out of the office into the hallway. Mr. Jeffers, hi. I'm Tabitha Adams. Good afternoon. Mrs. Adams, thank you for seeing me. I'm told you're the best divorce attorney in the country. Well, I'm not so sure about that. I only work in this state. So I don't deal with attorneys in other states enough to know how good they are. I had to admire this guy's courage. I knew exactly where he got his information about my abilities. So you want to divorce your wife? I continued. We were still in the lobby of my office, not too professional, but I had my reasons. Yes, I'm pretty sure that bitch is cheating on me. Good, I assume you have proof of that. You'll need proof to sue for adultery, not yet. But I'm going to hire a private investigator to get it good. I can start the paperwork, but before I file, you must provide me with the evidence. Now, I want to ask to avoid surprises. Do you have any outside sexual relations with her? Any affairs or flings on your part? Absolutely not. I would never do that to her. I've been 100% faithful to her since we started dating. Okay, I'm sorry, but I had to ask. Who are you planning on hiring as a private investigator? I have a firm I use if you haven't decided yet. Well, I have an appointment with Ace Investigations tomorrow morning. I've heard they're one of the best. Actually, they are the best. I use the services of that particular firm. If you'd like, I have an example of their work, and I can let you see it. Really? Wouldn't it be unethical to let me see a confidential report for someone else? In most cases, yes, it would be highly irresponsible to let a third party view such a confidential document, but in this particular case, it's fine. Oh, good. Then I'd love to see an example of their work. Smiling, I handed him the manila envelope I held in my hand. He accepted it. My smile changed. I couldn't help it. But I was suddenly overcome with a tingling sensation. Not a bad feeling, but a very pleasant feeling. And you've been served, I announced. The security cameras in the office captured me serving the asshole with divorce papers. It took him a minute to realize the current events. Finally, he looked at me with a deer in the headlights look. Suddenly, his face went pale and his jaw dropped open. Ha burst out from him. I regret to inform you that I cannot take your case, nor can any other attorney from my firm. It would be a conflict of interest. I'm already representing your soon-to-be ex-wife when she's divorcing me. When did she hire you? She hired me a week ago. That was 2 days after I showed her proof of your affair. What the hell? A startled expression suddenly appeared on his face. A sudden realization hit him. In desperation, he started grabbing the phone. Don't worry, I told him, glancing at the clock on the wall. I said, your girlfriend will probably find out about this right now. Just at that moment, my cell phone rang. Yep, about time. I answered it and put it on. Speaker. Hey, darla babe, Tabby, what's going on? I hissed my wife into the receiver. Yes, I'm a gold star. Lesbian guys just never attracted me. Well, baby, what seems to be going on? Tabby, I just got divorce papers. Why are you doing this? Did you bother to read them? No, I'm too shocked to get them. What's going on? Well, Darla, I have Keith Jeffers in my office right now. He tried to get me to represent him in his divorce from his wife. Unfortunately, she already hired me a week ago. Perhaps you should talk to Keith about why you were both served papers a few minutes ago. Since you haven't read the papers, I will inform you that you have 4 hours to pack your things and get out of my house. You may schedule a time to pick up the rest of what you will be allowed to take with you. At another time, my assistant will stay with you to make sure you don't take anything you're not supposed to take, according to the divorce petition. Without another word, she disconnected the call. I turned to Keith again. Oh, and I can absolutely confirm to you that your wife is not having an affair. You can hire your private detective firm, but you won't find anything. Yeah, how can you be so sure? Easy, I replied. Having sex with a client is a serious ethical violation. I could be disbarred for it, unless there is documentation that we did it before I started representing her. Of course, if this becomes known, you can use it against her in a divorce that was simply unacceptable. So we decided to hold off until after the divorce was finalized. As I said, she officially hired me 2 days after I showed her proof that you had screwed my wife the first 2 days I had her to death. We stopped after she signed the papers. You fucking bitch, I'm going to fight this. She was having an affair after all. Really, you have proof of that. What are you going to do? Are you going to try to say, I admitted it, I'll just deny it, and then the word of a known cheat and liar will be against the word of a respected member of the court? Good luck to you. I advise both you and my soon-to-be ex-wife to hire a good lawyer, but I don't think it will do either of you any good. With those words, he sprinted out of my office. So yeah, that scumbag screwed my wife. To be honest, I always knew she was bisexual. We talked about it on our first official date. Although she was bisexual and still interested in men, she explained that she was always exclusive about who she was in a relationship with. If she was in a relationship with a man, she did not have sex with any woman. Likewise, if she was in a relationship with another woman, she remained faithful and did not indulge her natural side. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. We were engaged for a year before we got married. At that point, we had been married for 5 years. About 4 months ago, I got a strange feeling that something wasn't right. Darla seemed a little off. Sure, we were still close, but it seemed like she wasn't herself. I decided to check it out. I have a client in my firm, Ace Investigations, and I decided to give them an assignment. Needless to say, I was very angry when I received the report 2 weeks later, however. I did realize that she was bisexual, so I thought I would give her the assignment for a short time. At least it wasn't another woman. Yeah, I understand biology. A guy has something a woman doesn't. Hopefully it was just a short-term affair to scratch an itch I can't satisfy. Yes, it hurt, but I was ready to ignore it until I heard this conversation. Keith. So I'm going to divorce Mary. Maybe I can set things up to make it look like she's cheating on me. Then I can enforce the prenup. Once that's done, you can divorce your wife over irreconcilable differences. I will get 90% of my assets and you will get half of yours. We will date in secret, and then 6 months after your divorce, we can suddenly meet and fall in love. Darla. Okay, I wish we didn't have to wait that long, but I understand with our prenup, any hint of us having an affair will just bring us down. You know what? You should use Tabby as your lawyer. If you can make it look like Mary's cheating on you. If Tubby will go after her, you'll end up getting a lot more than what's in the prenup. Keith laughs. Oh, that's great. Your wife will be contributing to her ex-wife's future lifestyle without having any idea. What's really going on? Darla, yeah, but it just sucks that I won't be able to use it in my divorce from her. That's why we need to keep it a secret. If I can convince her that I'm just unhappy, we can divorce amicably. The prenup will be unenforceable and I can walk away with half. I don't want to divorce without an argument. She would definitely ditch me. That changed the situation considerably. Now, I was going to war. To me, war means General Sherman's march to the sea. It does not mean any of the recent wars America has fought lately. I wasn't interested in those stupid rules of engagement that said our soldiers could only fire when directly threatened. Nope, rules of engagement. There are no fucking rules when you engage the enemy. After gathering all the evidence I'd gotten from my PI, I decided to pay Mary a visit. It just so happened that Keith was out of town for a week for a conference. Coincidentally. Darla was also going away for a few days for a trade show. Oddly enough, Keith's conference and Darla's exhibit happened to be in the same city. Mary was shocked when I showed her the video. She became furious when she heard the conversation. I made a not-so-subtle suggestion. She responded with enthusiastic approval. 2 days later, we dressed again and sat in her living room signing papers. James Davenport, Esquire. I knew I shouldn't have taken their cases. I just freaking knew it was for the best. There was absolutely no benefit to it as they sat at the table across from me and explained the situation. The only words in my head were they're totally screwed. Then they told me who the opposing counsel was to them. Screwed would have been just a blessing. When she informed me that the opposing counsel was actually her wife and that the divorce was due to adultery. I grabbed the wastebasket and threw up in it right in front of him. No good outcome was out of the question. I still don't know what made me take up their cause. Wait a minute. You actually went to her, the wife of the woman you cheated with, to hire her to divorce your current wife. Are you out of your fucking mind? I asked incredulously seriously. No one was that stupid. Well, yeah, she's the best divorce attorney in the state. I wanted the best division of assets I could get. I just shook my head in bewilderment. I sighed heavily when they finally finished their speech. Okay, my best advice for you two is to just sign the petitions and move on. But we won't get anything. If we sign Wine Darla, there has to be something we can do. If we fight, they'll have to offer us a better deal. The more we fight, the more they'll have to pay for legal fees. They'll offer us a better deal just so long as it goes smoothly, proclaimed Keith. I didn't have the heart to tell him he was dead wrong. Okay, let me call Tabitha and see if we can make an appointment. I dialed the number and put it on speakerphone. Adams and Associates, how can I help you? The receptionist answered, Good morning, this is James Davenport. I'd like to speak to Tabitha. Please, one moment, sir, she replied. And then put me on hold. James, darling, How nice to hear from you came a sultry voice. I wasn't fooled. Behind that sultry voice and murderous smile was the most vicious legal predator on the planet. Worse, she was an absolutely infuriating, deadly predator. Hi, Tabitha. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. I replied to, what do I owe the pleasure of your call? Dear well, Tabby, I was one of the few people who could get away with calling her that I had a feeling. The woman sitting across from me no longer had that right. I'm calling in the hope that we can make an appointment. James, darling, anything for you, so tell me, what is this meeting about? The pleasant demeanor didn't fool me one bit. I also knew she knew damn well what this call was about. I mentally pictured a Bengal tiger playing with a rabbit it had caught. The tiger was just having fun with it and then suddenly gobbling it up whole in that little video running through my head. I was definitely not a tiger. Well, Tabitha, it's about the divorce between Keith and Mary Jeffers and gulp you and Darla Adams H to tell you the truth. James, I really don't see the need for a meeting. Didn't you advise them to just sign the documents and move on? Yes, that's what I advised them. It sounds like they want to meet and discuss the terms of the divorce. I heard her sigh very well. Do you want to have one meeting with everyone involved or two separate meetings? I think it's best at this point to have one meeting with all parties involved, depending on how things go. Perhaps subsequent meetings will be separate. Very good, James, dear. You know how special you are to me. Can you make it 4 o'clock this afternoon? Looking across the table and seeing two nods, I replied, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Tabitha. Sure. James, I'll see you this afternoon, she said, and hung up. The thoughts continued to swirl around in my head. They're fucking crazy. Tabitha. Later that afternoon, good afternoon. James, can I ask my assistant to get something for you? Coffee, water, tea greeted me. James was a very discreet man, also quite intelligent. He was also a very good lawyer. If I had even the slightest interest in men romantically, I wouldn't hesitate to pursue him. Alas, men don't interest me in that sense. After the drinks were served, it was time to get down to business. First introductions, I began. Of course you all know me. James, my client. Mary. Mary, this is James Davenport. Darlin, Keith's attorney. Keith. Darlin, James, this lovely woman to my left is Jenny Hutchins. She will be representing me. You won't be handling your own divorce. Asked James, with a slight hope in his eyes. James, dear, you know the old saying, a man who represents himself in court has a fool for a client. Besides, Jenny is one of my star assistants. This is sort of her final exam. If she does well, she'll get a junior partnership in the near future. Besides, I'll be working beside her and making sure everything is done. Right. Your most trusted associate. Then he remarked, oh God, no, I've trained her too well to trust her really. James, she thinks morality is the pictures on the walls and remorse is what they make money on in Russia. If you don't trust her, why would you instruct her to represent you? Darla asked. It's very simple. She needs that junior partnership. I told her I know what the outcome should be. If I have to pay more, it will take longer before she gets that partnership. If the result is what I demand, she will get the partnership immediately. Frankly, I think she's trying her best to make it backwards. Excellent, said James. So the proposed settlement options are simply unacceptable. James, a copy of the prenuptial agreement was attached to the motion. These terms exactly match the prenuptial agreement. The infidelity has been proven, so we are enforcing the prenup in full. I objected. And what is this you say about my clients having to pay all legal fees as well as your fees? You filed for divorce, so it's up to you to pay. It's all spelled out in the prenuptial agreement. Dear, it says the guilty party pays for everything. I was actually thinking of representing Mary on a pro bono basis, but since your client will be paying anyway, I decided to charge full price. You can also be assured that a detailed account of my account will be prepared. Of course, since Jenny actually works for me, I will only charge Darla her salary for the entire time Jenny has been working. My clients heard that you and your client were also involved in your own affair. Accused James, hearing that I laughed inwardly. He didn't have any cards to play, so he was trying to make the best of it. I could see in his eyes that even he himself didn't believe it would work. Why, James the First, I'm almost insulted by this accusation. If I hadn't expected such baseless accusations from a couple of lying crooks, I would have taken offense, as well as I do that sleeping with a client is highly unethical. I could be disbarred for it. Do you have even a shred of evidence to support that claim, or are you just going to take the word of a known liar over a respected member of the court? We will fight this. The agreement you have proposed is completely unreasonable. Your wife will only get her clothes, her pension, the jewelry she had before she got married, and the money she brought into the marriage. Keith loses 70% of his pension, 70% of all marital assets, and must pay 65% of his income as spousal maintenance for the next 10 years. Yes, it's all spelled out in the prenup. The penalty for infidelity was stipulated to be severe. Good luck fighting it. I look forward to seeing these two cheaters brought to justice. You know how I love to make cheaters cry in court? It's been a long time since I brought an opposing counsel to tears in court as well. From that point, the meeting went downhill. They left looking worse than they had come. Jenny's grin was more like a grin of teeth when she announced with glee in her eyes to James that they would fight. I swear I heard Hart mentally sing Barracuda. The legal maneuvering began. Already a month later, the first court hearing was held. Things were not going well for James. I'm sure he realized he was losing the case, but his clients insisted on dragging out the process. I think they were hoping to drag it out as long as possible in hopes of maintaining access to the accounts to try to siphon off as much money as possible. Unfortunately for them. I saw this coming and froze the accounts, transferring most of the money to other accounts that didn't contain their names. Your Honor, my client still believes this marriage can be saved. We are requesting marriage counseling, said James for his situation. This was a surefire solution. I think he had anticipated our firm refusal. However, I surprised him. Your Honor, we have no objection to that, but with a couple of conditions. I replied, first, we choose our own counselor, and second, they pay for it themselves. The judge looked at me, then replied, I usually order both parties to pay half. Your Honor, since they are the ones asking for it and we don't feel the need for counseling, it is only fair that they pay the full cost. Why should my client spend his money on something he doesn't need or want? He wants it, he should pay for it. Your Honor, my client doesn't have the money to pay for it. The accounts have been frozen and he doesn't have access to them. Replied James, Your Honor, I will have my client go to the bank, unfreeze the checking account, and transfer 70% of the funds to another account in her name only. This will give her husband access to the money he is entitled to under the terms of the prenuptial agreement. Besides, he is still working and receiving a paycheck, so he is more than capable of paying for the sessions he is requesting, concluded I. The judge did schedule counseling sessions for Mary and Keith, but it was Keith's responsibility to pay for them. I got the number of sessions limited to 8. 2 hours later, I was back in the courtroom. This time, Jenny was next to me and Darla was next to James. James again asked for counseling just before Jenny began her arguments. The judge looked at me, limited the sessions to 8, allowed me to choose a counselor, and ordered Darla to pay for them. Now you may be wondering why we agreed to counseling so easily. It's simple. They were spending their money for nothing. It was all to be paid out of their settlement agreement. We were choosing our own counselor. Obviously, cost was going to be an issue. We chose the most expensive one, but it didn't make much difference. The judge only said we had to attend, but said nothing about being involved. Nevertheless, we did our duty and showed up. We pretended to be attentive, but all I could think about was what color to paint the living room and what furniture to replace. I seriously considered just spending time working on my tablet, but I felt like the counselor would disagree and interrupt the class that couldn't be allowed to happen now. I wanted Darla to get her payoff, and so did Keith. Plus, the longer the treatment lasted, the more time Mary and I had to take care of a few more things. Okay, I wasn't a real shark here. Truth be told, I didn't need to be. There were prenups that were honored, very harsh prenups. All I had to do, Jenny, too, was make sure the prenups were fully honored. We prepared briefs and objections to every possible motion that could be used to try to violate the prenup. We spent tons of hours on this. Sure, I could have been nice and offered a few crumbs to make things go faster. It wouldn't hurt either Mary or me to give them a nice check for, say, $10,000, maybe let Darla keep the jewelry and all that sort of thing. But what's the fun in that? Besides, the longer they procrastinated, the bigger the fee would be. Why are you being a bitch to us? Asked Keith. Finally, it was at our last meeting after the failed mediation because you both pissed me off, I replied. You know, I was actually thinking of being a little nicer to Darla and was trying to convince Mary to do the same. It ended when you called and set up an appointment for me to try and trick your wife. That pissed me off because you foolishly thought I would help destroy an innocent man so you could live comfortably while you made plans to steal the woman. I love you. Both could have come out of this with at least something, but you picked the wrong lawyer to try to fool me. The divorces went as I expected. Jenny outdid herself by successfully proving that the money Darla brought into the marriage should belong to me because she also brought in a lot of debt that I had to pay off. Yes, I taught her. Well, no, I didn't make her junior partnership retroactive, but I gave her a nice bonus. Now, Keith and Darla live in a rented trailer on the outskirts of town. The day after both divorces were finalized, Mary moved in with me. We rent her house to a nice family. 6 months later, I proposed a ring to Mary. She said, yes, it's going to be a long engagement. We've already set a date for our wedding. It's 10 years away. It will be the weekend after she receives the last spousal maintenance check from Keith. I saw the writing on the wall. I taught Jenny everything. She was a quick learner and very smart. She was also bloodthirsty. But she had her ethics. That was a must for my firm, but morals and scruples were optional. As long as the line wasn't crossed, everything was fine. Morality is a floating line that can be crossed as long as it doesn't violate ethics or is not prosecuted. Scrupulosity is the same. Now you are probably wondering what the difference is. Ethics are clearly defined by the Bar Association. Violate those rules and you can be disbarred. Morality is a person's own beliefs about right and wrong actions. Is it unethical to sneak a spy camera into a hotel room? Perhaps, but is it unethical? In the opinion of the Bar Association, no. Is it illegal? Not necessarily sure. You may not be able to use it in court, but you won't be prosecuted for it. So I had a situation to deal with. Jenny and James had gotten to know each other pretty well during my divorce. James is no fool. He's seen how Jenny works up until that point. James was the second best divorce attorney around. He was just unlucky that by the time he came into the world, there was nothing he could do. Up until that point, all he was worried about was having to stand up to me. Now he had another opponent. He just started pressuring Jenny to join the firm he worked for. Then he wouldn't have to sit in the same courtroom with her. Instead, I sat with both of them. James is now a senior partner and Jenny plans to make the same amount of money in a couple years, so I've stepped back a bit. Sure, I'm still a founding partner and I still run the firm, but now I only take a few cases a year and only the ones that really interest me. Jenny and James are now official partners. A couple of new associates are showing promise. I may have to take up mentoring again. Suddenly, I hear the refrain from the hit song by the band Heartfelt.